Oklahoma, a land of endless skies, red dirt, and restless souls. Beneath its small towns and quiet prairies lie stories that refuse to stay buried. From haunted hotels to ghost towns swallowed by time. Each corner hides a whisper from the past, a footstep in an empty hall, a face glimpsed just before the lights go out. Tonight, we're not just telling ghost stories, we're crossing into the places where history still breathes and the dead still remember. These are the top 15 haunted places in Oklahoma, and once you hear their stories, you'll never look at this state the same way again. One, Stone Lion Inn, Bed and Breakfast, Guthrie. In the quiet Victorian town of Guthrie, Oklahoma, stands a grand 3-story mansion known as the Stone Lion Inn. A place so beautiful by day, yet whispered to be cursed by night. Locals say the house never truly sleeps. It was built in 1907 by the Houghton family. But after tragedy struck the sudden death of their young daughter, the home became something else entirely. Guests who stay there often wake to the sound of small footsteps padding across the hallway, followed by the faint giggle of a child who isn't there. Others report blankets being tugged from their beds and cold fingers brushing their faces just before dawn. One guest swore she saw a little girl standing at the foot of her bed, her dress from another century, her face pale as moonlight. The story grew darker when a local paper covered an investigation into the inn's haunted reputation, mentioning paranormal teams who recorded EVPs, and a ghostly voice whispering "Mama" in the dead of night. Today, thrill seekers still book rooms, hoping to meet the spirit that never left. Some say it's the child. Others believe it's something older, something that feeds on attention. But if you ever spend a night at the Stone Lion Inn, ask yourself, when the laughter echoes down the hall at 3 a.m, will you dare to follow it? New Skirvin Hotel, Oklahoma City. In the heart of downtown Oklahoma City rises the Grand Skirvin Hotel, its red brick towers gleaming by day. But by night, they hold whispers of sorrow. Built in 1911, this luxurious landmark was once the pride of the city, until the legend of Effie took hold. She was said to be a young maid who became the mistress of W.B. Skirvin, the hotel's original owner, when her secret pregnancy threatened scandal. She was locked away on the upper floors, hidden from sight, her cries echoing behind gilded doors. Madness came slowly, and one stormy night, Effie leapt from the 10th floor, her baby in her arms. Ever since, guests have reported the cries of an unseen infant and the haunting laughter of a woman drifting through empty corridors. Even visiting NBA teams have refused to stay there, unnerved by doors slamming on their own and showers turning on in the dark. A local newspaper once detailed these encounters, noting unexplained cold spots and security footage that captured a figure in 1920s clothing gliding past a locked suite. The Skirvin has since embraced its haunted fame, offering ghost tours for the brave. Yet those who've spent a night there all agree when the elevator stops at the 10th floor by itself, and a woman hums softly from nowhere. It's best not to answer her song. 3. Gilcrease Museum, Tulsa. On the northern edge of Tulsa, where the hills roll quietly under the wind, stands the Gilcrease Museum, a sanctuary of art and history, and, as many whisper, of lingering spirits. The museum was founded by Thomas Gilcrease, a wealthy oilman and passionate collector whose life was consumed by the past he sought to preserve. When he died in 1962, staff swore his devotion did not end there. Security guards began reporting strange happenings, paintings shifting on their own, the scent of cigar smoke drifting through sealed galleries, and the faint shuffle of boots echoing across marble floors long after closing. One night, a worker cleaning the West Wing saw the shadow of a man standing beneath Gilcrease's portrait, tall, motionless, and wearing the same suit the founder was buried in. Terrified, she fled, only to return with a colleague. But the shadow was gone. Years later, a regional magazine featured a detailed report on the museum's hauntings, including photographs of unexplained orbs and a recording of a man's voice murmuring, "Don't touch that," when no one else was present. Even today, guards say the lights flicker near his favorite exhibit, as if the collector himself still watches over his treasures. So when you wander through the quiet halls at dusk, surrounded by relics of forgotten lives, could it be that Gilcrease is still curating from the other side? 4. Cherokee Strip Museum, Alvey, on a quiet street in Alva, Oklahoma. The Cherokee Strip Museum stands like a frozen memory, its brick walls hiding the echoes of another time, long before it became a museum. This building served as a hospital, where the sick and dying whispered their last words into the night. Locals say those whispers never stopped. Visitors report feeling a sudden chill as they step inside, or hearing the faint clink of metal trays and the slow creak of gurneys that no longer exist. One woman swore she saw a nurse in a 1920s uniform glide past the hallway, only to vanish when she turned the corner. At dusk, the faint notes of a piano drift through the air, the same tune a nurse once played to comfort her patients before the influenza epidemic claimed dozens of lives within these walls. Years later, a feature story described paranormal teams recording disembodied voices, one male, one female, repeating the words, "Help me," from a locked examination room. The museum's curators say they've learned to live with it, treating the ghosts as part of the exhibits themselves. Yet when night falls and the lights flicker above the old operating table, one question remains: are these echoes of memory? Or are the patients still waiting to be saved? For Gulf, Fort Washita Historic Site, Durant. Hidden among the rolling hills of southern Oklahoma, the crumbling stone walls of Fort Washita stand as silent witnesses to nearly 2 centuries of tragedy. Built in 1842, the fort once protected settlers and served as a military post during the Civil War. But after blood was spilled on its soil, peace never truly returned. Locals tell of Aunt Jane, a woman brutally murdered near the fort in the 1860s, her head never found. Her spirit said to wander the grounds, searching for it still. Visitors often describe hearing soft footsteps following them through the mist, or seeing a white figure drift between the barracks just before midnight. Rangers have reported locked doors opening on their own, lanterns swinging violently with no wind, and the faint scent of lilacs, the perfume Aunt Jane was said to wear decades ago. An article described how paranormal investigators captured a chilling photograph, a translucent woman in period dress standing near the cemetery gate, staring directly at the camera. The image sparked national attention, turning Fort Washita into one of Oklahoma's most haunted landmarks. Yet those who walk its grounds after dark all say the same thing when the cold breath of air touches your neck, and a whisper calls your name from the shadows. Would you dare to turn around? 6. Miller Brothers 101 Ranch, Ponca City. Just outside Ponca City lies a vast stretch of land once known as the Miller Brothers 101 Ranch, a legendary Wild West empire that dazzled the world with rodeos, circuses, and cowboy fame. But beneath its glory lies a darker legacy. The ranch, founded in the early 1900s, saw fires, freak accidents, and countless deaths of workers and performers who called it home. Locals say the spirits of cowboys still ride across the prairie at night, their ghostly horses thundering through the fields under a blood-red moon. Visitors have reported the faint strains of banjo music drifting from the ruins of the old show arena, and laughter echoing from the barn long after sunset. Once, a historian visiting the site claimed to see a man in dusty chaps and a wide-brimmed hat standing by the corral. But when she blinked, he was gone, leaving only boot prints in the mud that led nowhere. Years ago, a regional newspaper published an account of paranormal researchers who recorded mysterious voices saying, "Keep the show going, and the boss is watching." Today, the ranch is nothing but foundations and memories. Yet, something restless lingers in the wind, perhaps the ghosts of the performers who refuse to leave the spotlight. And if you stand there long enough, listening closely, will you hear the rodeo start again? 7. Bluebell Saloon, Guthrie. In the heart of historic Guthrie stands the Bluebell Saloon, a two-story relic from the Wild West days, where whiskey, music, and sin once flowed freely. But beneath the laughter and clinking glasses lay stories soaked in blood. The building, dating back to the late 1800s, was once a saloon and, according to town whispers, a brothel run by two sisters named Rose and Patty. One night, after a violent quarrel with a drunken patron, both women vanished. Days later, townsfolk complained of a stench from the walls, and legend says their bodies were bricked up inside. Ever since, the Bluebell has been alive with strange energy. Patrons have heard women's laughter echoing from the upstairs rooms long after closing, and mirrors have shattered without reason. A musician once refused to play there again after spotting two shadowy figures swaying in the balcony, even though the doors had been locked. Years later, a local newspaper featured an investigation describing sudden drops in temperature and electronic voice recordings of a woman whispering, "He found us." Today, the saloon's doors remain open, serving drinks to tourists unaware of what lies behind its walls. But if you find yourself there after midnight, when the lights dim and the air turns cold, will you toast the living or the dead who never left? 8. Mohawk Park and Golf Course, Tulsa. On the outskirts of Tulsa lies Mohawk Park, a vast stretch of forest and open land where sunlight fades fast and silence feels heavier than it should. Beneath the rustling leaves and winding trails, locals whisper of a curse that's older than the park itself. It began decades ago, when construction workers clearing ground for the golf course unearthed what appeared to be ancient burial sites, and from that day, nothing there was ever truly still. Night golfers and rangers have reported hearing footsteps crunching behind them on empty paths, faint children's laughter echoing from the woods, and ghostly lights gliding across the fairways before vanishing into thin air. One man claimed he was chased by a figure in mist tall, shapeless, moving faster than any human could run. Another swore he heard voices calling his name from the trees, even though he was utterly alone. Years later, a feature story described park employees quitting after seeing a glowing figure by the 9th hole that dissolved as they approached, leaving behind the smell of smoke and wet earth. Some say it's the spirits disturbed from their resting place. Others insist it's the park itself, alive and watching. So if you ever tee off beneath the full moon at Mohawk and hear soft laughter drifting from the woods, will you keep playing or run before the voices reach your name? Chapter 9. Fort Gibson Historic Site. Fort Gibson, nestled beside the Grand River. The Fort Gibson Historic Site looks peaceful, its stone barracks and weathered cannons gleaming in the Oklahoma sun. But when darkness falls, the fort becomes something else entirely. Built in 1824, it was the first U.S. military post in what would become Oklahoma, a place touched by war, disease, and death. Soldiers died of cholera, prisoners perished in isolation, and the cries of the wounded once echoed through the night air. Today, visitors say those cries never truly stopped. Rangers have heard the rhythmic stomp of boots in empty corridors, as if ghostly sentries still march their eternal patrol. Tourists report cold hands brushing their shoulders, and faint whispers saying, "Stand guard," even when they're alone. One man captured a photo of what appeared to be a soldier in full uniform, standing by the flagpole, though no reenactment was scheduled that day. A few years ago, a regional article detailed a paranormal investigation where electromagnetic readings spiked violently inside the old officers' quarters, followed by a disembodied voice recorded on tape. "I'm still here." Locals believe the fort's soldiers never abandoned their post, bound to their duty, their spirits pacing the same walls they once defended. And when the wind whistles through the gates at night, carrying a single word march, will you dare to look and see who's giving the order? 10. Eskridge Hotel Museum, Wynwood. At the corner of Dean 8, McGee and Main Street in Wynwood stands a 3-story brick building that seems ordinary by daylight. But once the sun sets, the Eskridge Hotel Museum becomes something far stranger. Built in the late 1800s, it served as a bustling hotel for weary travelers on the frontier. Yet, not everyone who checked in ever left. Locals whisper of a violent brawl in room 23 that ended in murder, and of a traveling salesman who vanished from the top floor, his suitcase found neatly packed beside an open window. Today, museum staff speak of lights turning on by themselves, mannequins shifting positions overnight, and faint footsteps pacing across the hardwood floors when the building is empty. A visitor once collapsed in fright after seeing a figure of an elderly woman staring from the second-floor window. But when staff rushed upstairs, the room was locked from within. Years later, a local newspaper featured a report on paranormal investigators who recorded whispers near the old reception desk, a woman's voice repeating, "Welcome back." Even now, the building remains one of Oklahoma's most haunted museums, where history breathes, and sometimes it breathes too close. So if you ever step inside and hear the soft ring of a bell at the unattended front desk, would you dare to answer it? Tovern Brady Theater, Tulsa. In the heart of Tulsa's historic arts district, the grand old Brady Theater stands like a monument to time, elegant, silent, and, some say, deeply haunted. Built in 1914, it once hosted world-class performances, from operas to vaudeville acts. But one performance would mark the building forever. In 1920, famed Italian tenor Enrico Caruso fell ill while performing on its stage. He later died from that illness, and ever since, strange things have happened here. Stagehands have reported the sound of an unseen man warming up his voice in the dark, while others hear Italian phrases echoing from the wings when no one is there. Ushers swear they've seen a man in a tuxedo wandering backstage, only for him to fade into the brick wall behind the curtains. One investigative article described a security camera catching a mist-like form drifting across the empty orchestra pit, moments after a microphone picked up the faint hum of a tenor's melody. To this day, performers claim they feel a cold presence watching from the balcony, as if a ghostly critic still judges every note. The Brady's lights still burn bright for Tulsa's nightlife. But when the curtain falls and the audience is gone, a single voice sometimes sings through the silence. Could it be the final encore of Caruso himself? 12. Old Plantation Restaurant, Medicine Park. Tucked in the cobblestone village of Medicine Park, the old plantation restaurant looks charming, its rustic wooden beams and stone walls glowing under the amber light. But when the last diner leaves and the clatter of dishes fades, the building begins to stir. Constructed in the early 1900s, it once served as a boarding house and dance hall, filled with laughter, music, and secrets. Locals say a woman named Margaret, a hostess known for her fiery temper, died tragically after a lover's quarrel turned violent in one of the upstairs rooms. Ever since, she's never truly left. Staff have reported glasses flying off shelves, chairs dragging across the floor, and the faint sound of heels pacing above the dining area. One night, a waitress heard soft humming near the staircase, followed by the distinct scent of lilac perfume, Margaret's signature scent, though the restaurant was empty. Years later, a local magazine covered the story, describing how paranormal investigators captured a chilling EVP of a woman whispering, "Don't go upstairs." Even today, the owners say the temperature drops whenever someone mentions her name aloud, and when the old jukebox starts playing by itself after midnight. There's one question everyone asks. Is it the music that draws her back, or the memories that refuse to die? 13. Kendall's Restaurant, Noble. In the small town of Noble, Oklahoma, there's a little roadside diner with red checkered curtains and a reputation that chills even the locals. Kendall's Restaurant. By day, it's known for chicken fried steak and family charm. But when the neon sign flickers at closing time, the air turns heavy, and the past seeps through the walls. The building dates back to the early 1900s, when it served as a general store and later, a doctor's office where more than one patient took their final breath. Employees whisper about the Four, a group of unseen spirits said to haunt the place, a young boy who laughs near the restroom, a man in a fedora pacing the kitchen, a weeping woman seen in the hallway mirror, and something darker that lurks in the back dining room. Staff have found silverware stacked in strange patterns, lights flickering in sequence as if signaling, and voices whispering their names when no one else was around. A few years ago, a local TV segment covered the hauntings, capturing a sudden temperature drop and an unexplained shadow crossing behind the reporter. Today, Kendall's leans into its legend, offering haunted dinners where guests try to spot the restless souls themselves. But when your table starts to shake and your drink ripples on its own, do you laugh it off? Or admit that someone unseen just joined you for supper? 14. Sacred Heart Mission, Pottawatomie County. Deep in the woods of Pottawatomie County, the ruins of the Mavericks' Sacred Heart Mission rest in eerie silence, moss-covered stones and weathered bricks marking what was once a thriving Catholic school and monastery. Founded in the 1870s, it stood as a beacon of faith for settlers and native children alike. But in 1901, tragedy struck. A sudden fire consumed the mission, killing priests, nuns, and several orphaned children trapped inside. Locals say the smoke may have cleared, but the cries never stopped. Visitors walking the grounds at dusk often hear the faint toll of a bell that no longer exists, or the soft voices of children reciting lessons in the wind. Some have reported glowing lights drifting near the cemetery, and the scent of incense thick in the air, with no source to be found. A journalist once detailed how paranormal researchers recorded a child's voice whispering, "Sister." It's hot near the remains of the schoolhouse foundation. Others claim to see shadowed figures kneeling in prayer among the ruins. Today, the site is a pilgrimage for both believers and thrill seekers, a place where faith and fear blur together. And as night falls, when the woods grow still and a faint hymn rises from the dark, you can't help but wonder, are they praying for peace? Or still trapped in the fire that took them? Benin 15, Picher, ghost town, Ottawa County. Once a booming mining town in northeast Oklahoma, Picher now lies silent, its streets cracked, its houses hollow, its past poisoned both literally and spiritually. In the early 1900s, Picher was the heart of the tri-state mining district, where lead and zinc fueled fortunes. But decades of reckless mining left behind toxic mountains of chat-gray hills of tailings laced with heavy metals when the Environmental Protection Agency declared it one of the most contaminated places in America. Most residents fled. Yet, those who stayed began to speak of strange things, whispers echoing through abandoned houses, shadowy figures standing near the mine shafts, and the sound of children laughing where schools once stood. In 2008, a deadly tornado ripped through what remained of the town, as if nature itself was sealing its fate. Paranormal teams later explored the ruins, documenting voices on tape saying, "We're still here," and lights flickering deep in mine tunnels long since collapsed. A few journalists who dared to visit after dark described seeing silhouettes watching from broken windows, too still, too silent to be alive. Today, Picher is a ghost town in every sense, poisoned by earth and haunted by memory. And when the wind howls through the empty streets, carrying the faint echo of pickaxes and laughter, one question lingers: are they ghosts of the miners, or just the town refusing to die? They say Oklahoma's winds carry more than dust, they carry the voices of the past. From crying children in Guthrie to the marching soldiers of Fort Gibson, every ghost here has a story to tell, if you dare to listen. So the next time you pass an old inn, a silent fort, or a town too quiet to be empty, stop for a moment. Because sometimes, the sound you hear behind you isn't the wind at all. Tell me, which of these haunted places would you dare to visit first?